Hey guys, it's Logan here with Hydra572, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Spyderco Delica. Now, similarly to my review of the Spyderco Endura, I feel that this version of this blade isn't actually the optimal version for me to carry and then to review. With the Endura, it was because it was a cool coloration that I purchased off of Chad. This time, it's because I actually won this knife on an Instagram giveaway from Blade HQ. So that's pretty cool. This knife doesn't match all of my stylistic preferences, but I have an opportunity to review it, so I'm going to do so. We'll go ahead and hop in with intended usage. Well, the Delica is a quintessential EDC blade. I would even say that it helped to define what we think of as an EDC blade today. That means that a lot of people will be carrying this as their only blade with them, whereas I would prefer to carry it as a backup in a back pocket to a larger tactical folder because I can't carry a firearm, being 17 and all. Moving on to pricing, it is $65 on Blade HQ or around $50 on eBay. It is certainly on the expensive end for a knife using this steel and in this size. Blade profile, we have a drop point, a very iconic Spyderco blade design. Very nice blade profile actually for light EDC tasks. The tip is pretty acute while remaining strong. Belly, actually not a whole lot. As you guys see there, not a bunch of the blade is going to be making contact, especially accounting for your knuckles there to add a little bit of extra slope. The steel is VG10. I think of VG10 not as being an entire ratchet click above HCR13 MOV, but being close. Not necessarily being as good as AUS 8, but being a super sharpenable steel, and this holds true with this blade. The retention actually not as good, I think, as some other Spyderco blades that I've had with VG10, like the Centafonte, but with your testing incorporating as much human error as my testing does, that's an easy thing to lose just throughout the process. So typical VG10 edge retention, I'll say, which is not an entire ratchet click above budget steels, I don't think, but also very, very sharpenable. I reprofiled this blade on the Wicked Edge after some edge retention testing, and it took just a fantastic edge. Sharpening was very easy. The grind is a partial hollow, which for this blade profile and an EDC blade is not what I would prefer, but they offer this same exact knife within FFG, so I guess fuck me. Moving on to deployment, we have the Spidey hole, as you guys see there, and all of your other Spidey hole type openings are facilitated for as well. See if I can do a horizontal version of a Spidey drop. Like that. Rotational openings, not really, because it's actually pretty hard to do with the blade being light in comparison to the handle. Pretty good handle retention with the backlock, and also with FRN handled Spyderco backlocks, which means pretty much every backlock I've ever had from Spyderco, if you really slam it down this way and get a good rotational opening or slam it open that way, the backlock actually might not engage. So for this blade, I actually just wouldn't plan that method of deployment. The lock, we have a backlock with a Bowie dent. As usual, I'll say I'm not really sure that a Bowie dent does what it's supposed to do, but I don't have a problem with them. They don't irritate my fingers or anything like that. Play, like FRN handled Spydercos do, we have a little bit of play in every direction. That's sort of too bad. Materials, the handle, there you guys see, we have black FRN offered in a number of colors. Very cool of Spyderco to do that. Not a whole lot of companies offer their blades in many colors, Cold Steel another one that I have lauded before for doing that. We have bidirectional texturing, as you guys can see there, which I'm becoming more and more of a fan of. It actually does work pretty well while being subtle, not too abrasive on your hand. The liners, as you guys will probably not be able to see, are skeletonized steel. There you guys see a little bit of skeletonization in there to save weight. The ergonomics are pretty good. I actually feel that the optimal handle size just for my hand is right in between the Delica handle length and the larger version of this blade, the Endura handle length. I feel like the optimal is right in there. But overall, these knives have a quality about them that if you just grip them without overthinking your grip, you get a very comfortable grip, whereas if you really start to roll them around and try to place the front edge of the handle in a specific knuckle position or anything like that, you get sort of less comfortable. So I have to get into a habit of just picking it up right into position there, Very comfortable grip. Actually, as you guys will see when we get down to specs, this is a pretty small knife, but with the handle being comfortable and the blade having quite a bit of cutting power, it feels like a larger knife than it is. The specs actually sounded wrong when I took them down for the first time. The jimping is very good. Spyderco's jimping is usually good, and this is a benchmark even for them. It is a relatively fine jimping, so you guys can see there, but it is very tacky without being sharp. Overall, very good. Clip, also another thing that we tend to take for granted now that Spyderco did very well back when few people were doing it very well. We have a 4-way reversible pocket clip, standard Spyderco hourglass, very comfortable, very usable. Somewhat bendable though, as I figured out with a bird the other day getting into my car as it was clipped into my back pocket. Bent back really easy though, stamped steel, very good clip overall. On to presentation. Well, that's one of the cooler things about this blade. Like I mentioned, you can get the handle in a number of colors, you can get the blade in a number of styles, full serrated, no serrations, and partial on the traditional, that is hollow ground Endura 4, and I believe no serrations are available on the FFG Endura 4s. But you can basically tweak a couple of things that would make this blade much better presented, in my opinion. That said, though I'd like a green or a purple handle and an FFG blade, and I will be purchasing one of those at some point, it still is a very attractive and very sharp. See what I did there? It's sharp because it looks nice. It's also a knife. Yeah, it's late. I should go to bed, I know. Anyway, it's a very sharp looking blade. Overall, very well presented, a nice satin polish and whatnot. Quality is fine. You know, we've got a little bit of play in both directions, which I've taken issue with on backlocks from Spyderco before, but overall, not that big of a deal. The hardware is good, as is typical of Spyderco, and the play is not a concern. It's not going to close up on your hand or anything like that. On to value, and I mean, you're getting VG10 and FRN and skeletonized steel liners for $50. And the $50 price range is just really difficult to compete in today's market because there's so many great blades in the bracket immediately underneath it. So for value, I'll say and we'll kind of transition into competition here. Most budget blades under $40 are going to be serious competition for the Delica. I think you could go so far as to say that that division of the blade market has been created pretty much because of the Delica, probably partially because of the Tenacious as well. And as I've said before, Spyderco has a bad habit of competing with their own more expensive blades with cooler budget blades. So I think the Tenacious, Persistence, Ambitious, maybe even the Resilience are very strong competition for the Delica. Certainly, in my mind, very strong competition. Centofonte 3, similarly sized, similarly weighted. I think a little bit more comfortable, a little bit better EDC blade profile. Still that hollow grind. And then just one more that I picked out, the Ontario Rat 1, a little bit larger, a little bit heavier. Of course, you have offerings like the Mini Tough Light from Cold Steel. You have CRKT offerings. Kershaw has plenty of blades in this price division. All very strong competition for the Endura. So as we move into pass-fail, I want to bring up this concept one more time of, to understand the Endura and to understand why I think it's really cool, you have to understand that Spyderco really did have a big hand in creating the modern EDC folder. These expectations that we all have, one hand opening and closing, secure locks, 4-way reversible clip, textured handles made out of a light plastic type material. Spyderco was one of the companies with Wayne Goddard that went out there and really sort of made this a thing. So it's easy to look at this and say, well, look at all this stuff competing with you. How do you really expect to stack up? I almost made this video into just that, of does the Delica stack up anymore? And the answer really in my mind is no. The Delica, unless you really like the fit in hand, unless you really like the looks or the blade profile, I don't think that it's really dominant over these blades that cost a little bit less, perform similarly, maybe in the case of the Centofonte cost the same, look a little bit better. I don't think this is really a champion anymore. It's still a relatively strong competitor, but I don't think it's the undisputed champion of this philosophy of use. That said, understanding its historical impact is one of the blades that helped create the classification of blades that made the production and marketing of these three blades that I love possible. I'm able to appreciate this thing as basically a living piece of history. And on that aspect, I think it gains a whole lot of second kind of cool. I think it is still a very strong competitor in this, let's call it, weight division. So, overall, pass-fail, I'm going to give it a pass. For $50, it's not my pick if you needed one EDC blade. But it is a very quintessential EDC blade. It helped create the EDC blade as we think of it today. And perhaps in a different configuration with a different blade grind and a different handle color, it might actually be a little bit more attractive to me, a little bit more functional as an EDC blade. I don't think the profile's changed, so I still think you're going to have relatively minimal belly, but it is a very good all-around EDC blade profile. It's a very good all-around EDC blade. So, pass and fail, let's go ahead and give it a pass. Like I said, we have an entire budget blades playlist, or not budget blades, EDC blades playlist, full of blades that compete with this thing, but that perhaps wouldn't be here if this thing hadn't come along. So we are grateful for that. I'll move into specs really quick, clear some of our competition off, let things get friendly again. Overall length 7.125 inches, blade length 2.875, handle length 4.25, blade thickness 0.09, relatively thin stock. Cutting edge 2.56 inches. Usually I wouldn't like a blade that has that small of a blade to handle ratio, and I wouldn't like that small of a blade in general. But this thing fits my hand pretty well, and you actually do get quite a bit of cutting power out of that VG10 with that hollow grind, even though you're only engaging just a little bit, not very upswept blade. It does work pretty well. Weight 2.5 ounces, a relatively light blade, making it even more of a rock star for those of us that are focused on weight. So a very cool blade, glad I got a chance to review it. Thank you to Blade HQ, and I don't think I need to say this with my under 200 subs, but Blade HQ didn't pay me to do this review or anything. I try to mention them every now and then because a lot of times when I shop for blades, when I'm comparing different blades and looking at how prices compare, I do it on Blade HQ. So I've been intending to purchase from them a little bit more because I am using their website basically as a free shopping service, whereas it wouldn't be that easy to shop on a website like eBay where there's other stuff on there and you have to search different ways. But I don't need an end review rant. So thank you to Blade HQ for allowing me to win this blade on your Instagram. Go follow them on Instagram. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more of the same.